Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Collecting Vintage Unopened podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart. This is a podcast that's devoted to discussing anything and everything in regards to the collecting of unopened sports and non-sports cards. And today we're actually discussing a sport and a topic that we haven't touched on in this podcast before, and it's unopened basketball cards, and specifically unopened star basketball cards. And so to discuss this topic with me, my special guest today is Chris. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
So why don't we start just a little bit of your background in the hobby and maybe a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure. Just real quick, my YouTube channel is All-Time Sports Cards, 4 words. And I've only been on YouTube as an active contributor, making videos maybe since mid to late summer this year. So just a few months. Really enjoyed it. It's really, been everything I was hoping for, at least be able to, start sharing parts of my collection and meeting folks like yourself, Brandon, which has been great. So I've been collecting really since I was a small kid, right? So like literally over 40 years. And like most, sometimes you go through these phases in life where you don't collect as much, or you maybe leave for a couple of years and take a break, depending on life circumstances. I was, the same way. There were a few years there where I didn't, but for the most part, I've never left the hobby, and I've always enjoyed it as, as a collector, and try to keep my collection kind of fresh. On my channel, you'll get a sense that I tend to focus on baseball, basketball, football, and a little bit of hockey. So I cover kind of the 4 major U.S. sports, and that's kind of the extent of what I'll do. But I'd like to say that I have a lot of variety of what I'll show. Some non, sports cards, but also some non-sports card material that's sports related, memorabilia, things like that. So yeah, I look forward to. I have a long list of videos I still want to make, so it'll be fun.
And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on to discuss today's topic, star cards, is because you have an impressive collection of star basketball cards. So why don't we start with a little bit of background about Star as a company and a little bit about their history in the hobby, because it's such a interesting history.
It is. It's quite a fascinating history, and one that I've really tried to learn a lot about over the last, say, couple of years. I think the first star card that I purchased, I purchased a graded card in a slab of Michael Jordan. It wasn't his famous rookie card, but it was one of the star cards. And I purchased that at a card shop about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was really fascinated by it. It was a great looking card. And I was like, wow, I really want to look into this a little more. I've always heard of the Star brand, but I never really, dabbled in it. So fast forward to early 2020, and obviously like most of us, the sports card market, if you want to call it a market or the hobby, was exciting for a lot of different reasons for a lot of different people. But for me, I was just, with a little bit of the extra time I had on my hands working from home, like a lot of folks, I was able to really focus on some things that I didn't have in my collection that I wanted to expand. And then part of that is the star basketball run. And just looking at the different variety of cards. And as I dug deeper into it, I realized that it's a very compelling story, and one that I think needs to be told so that people kind of can get educated on it and understand it, just like I had to educate myself on it, over the last couple of years and doing some research.
Sure. Yeah, no. And it's so what year did they start making these, right? Because there's so many awesome XRC or extended
rookies. Yeah, I think that's a price guide term, XRC, right? The extended rookie. But that Jordan card that you're talking about is the one that kind of made that term famous for star cards specifically. The XRC term has been used, for decades in Beckett guides and stuff for different cards. But so what is an extended rookie? Well, that's sort of a Beckett term. I think there's also another way I would say that's synonymous to that would be a true rookie card. And that would be, a card that was a precursor, or a card that was an official, NBA licensed card that was their first issued card. Okay. So when we look at like 86 Fleer, what happened before 86 Fleer? Because there's a gap between 1981-82 Topps basketball, right? That was the last set that Topps basketball made for many years, until 1986, right? So what happened in those few years? Well, what filled that gap was the Star Company brand, okay? So the Star cards came out in 1983. There was actually a 1-year gap where no official NBA licensed cards were produced between 82 and 83, okay? But you still had rookies and great players coming out then, right? You had James Worthy, rookie. You had Dominique Wilkins. You had Byron Scott. You had a few other players that were these new rookies in the league, even before Jordan. So there's this gap, and then you get to the Jordan years, and everything from 83 to 86, and it's an exciting time in the NBA. That's when the NBA had some pretty explosive growth. Once Dr. J was winding down his career, Magic and Larry Bird were coming into their own after going head to head and a couple of NBA titles, right, back and forth, as we know, in the mid 80s. So Star Company was the one to kind of pick up where Topps left off, and they were the exclusive holders to the NBA rights for NBA licensed cards. So that's where we get from 83 to 86, those 3 seasons. Those were the cream of the crop for the Star brand.
Okay. And can you show, for those that are listening and watching on the YouTube channel, can you show a few cards so we can kind of get a sense of what these cards look like?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll try. I'll see how it works with the camera here. But hopefully you can see that. Okay. So this is like 1983, 84 season. This is a short print set of the LA Lakers team set. And these came in team bags. We're going to talk about the bags here in a minute. But this is Kareem, with his famous hook shot. And this is actually a pretty rare card, as far as if you look at, I'll use the term population report, right, which is a common term today used when you're looking at how many graded examples have been submitted for grade, or cards that have been submitted for grading. So this Kareem card is one, and this is from the first year of Star. I'll show you another one. Here's like a Danny Ainge rookie. That's also from 83, another short print set. So this was the first year that Star came out with like team sets. And basically you would buy these cards originally in team bags. And those bags look like this. I'll just go ahead and show a bag here so that you see what these look like. This is the Houston Rockets team bag from 83. And they came in kind of like these poly bags, where you have, blue seal at the top and a blue seal at the bottom. I wouldn't necessarily call them, I guess, I don't know if they're considered hermetically sealed. They're not vacuum sealed because you can move them around a little bit, which is where some of the condition sensitivity comes in. But, you can see the top player on the front and the back. It'd be like the equivalent of like a cello pack, right? Where on the cello pack or rack pack, you can see the top player and the bottom player. Now, the difference with Star is you knew what you were getting because they had checklists that you could tell, you would know which cards were in each team. So this is an 11 or 12 card set, I think, the one I was just showing you with the Rockets. So in there, you're guaranteed to get those players. You're guaranteed to get Ralph Sampson on the cover on the top, but then you'll get like Phil Ford, you'll get Elvin Hayes, another Hall of Fame player. So that there was some predictability to the unopened material with Star, certainly.
And were all of the poly bags, to your knowledge, for all of the Rockets poly bags had the same card on the front and the same card on the back, or was there variation?
No, there should not be a variation. They should have the same collation when they're packaged in the poly bags. So you should always see, if you were going after this team bag, you should always see Ralph Sampson on the front. Okay. And the same with cards on the back. So now nowadays with the internet, obviously, you can look up anything and you can tell, you can see images of it online, and there's ways to be able to make sure you're doing your research before you buy any unopened material. And there's a lot of things that you and I probably will need to talk about here about, things to look out for and, risks and rewards and all that come with it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and because star cards kind of have sometimes they have a negative connotation in the hobby, and some of the star unopened
Yeah.
material is also seen as maybe not legitimate. Can we talk a little bit about why that's the case?
Yeah. Sure. Oh, what happened, I think it's going to be important to know that there's a lot of mystery surrounding Star Brand. I think there's a lot of collectors that would like to be able to dabble in it and start collecting Star cards in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of compelling reasons why they're collectible. There's rarity. There's the image, the photography used. The images used of the players that was fairly unique. There's different size cards. I'll show some of my oversized cards as well from, because they made some 5x7 size cards as well that also came in those polybags. But it is a tainted history. And that's one thing that has prevented, a lot of the other well-known grading companies from grading Star cards. Currently today, any of the slab cards I would show you are going to be Beckett slabs. However, some do exist. You can still find some with a GAI label. You can still find some with, rarely, you can find early PSA labels from like the early mid 90s that are way back in the early days of PSA. But those are very hard to come by. And ironically enough, they do command a premium because it's a PSA label. And then there's a fourth very obscure company called SCV, which was, for those of you that know Sports Collectors Digest, that was actually a grading company that started grading the Star cards as well. Now, they were obviously a short-lived grading company, even less so than GAI. But those were the four grading companies. PSA was one of the first ones, and then they quickly got out of it. So we'll cover kind of like the elephant in the room. What was the deal? What happened? Counterfeits started to be made of the Jordan cards once Jordan, his career really took off in the mid to late 80s. And you started to even see some of those reprints start to pop up, as the junk wax era, came more into fruition in the late 80s, early 90s. And then the Star company owner actually, committed a crime and fraudulent act where he claimed he started printing and producing Star cards in the early 90s, but with the card labels saying that they were Star 86 on them or Star 85. And I think most of them he had were considered Star 86. So he had certain cards that they came out with, which featured Jordan, right? So Michael Jordan was on a lot of those cards from the 86 set, and they had a couple of subsets. And eventually they got caught. The FBI caught on to what he was doing, and the thing that really kind of put it over the top was the Shop at Home scandal of '97. And that Shop at Home scandal, so it was like the online shop, not online, but home shopping network. You watch it on TV and make your late night purchases, right? So they'd be talking up these cards as authentic Jordan early year cards, pre-Fleer 86 cards, when in fact they really weren't, because they were printed in the 90s. So at that point, PSA was already, I think, suspected that some of the cards they had already been grading were fakes. And they did, there were some cards that PSA had graded that were considered fakes. So they immediately chose to just stop grading. And again, you got to think about PSA in the early mid 90s. They were still a young up and coming company then. They weren't, the top dog like they are today in the grading world. So they had their reputation on the line. So they had to they chose to make a decision to stop grading Star cards altogether. And to this day, so fast forward 25 years later, and they still don't grade Star cards. And I think that has a lot to do with why they're not as popular today.
Sure. Yeah, I think and the fact that it was such a open fraud, that he's on television, hawking these 1986 quote unquote Jordan cards that end up being, made.
Well, that and he fabricated a story that he put on company letterhead with his signature, saying that these were authentic cards that were found in a warehouse that were unearthed and not publicly seen yet. So that kind of lent to that fake story. And, they sold a lot of, fraudulent cards then. And unfortunately, a lot of those cards are still circulating out there today. And that's why I think a lot of collectors are leery to try to, that's why they've stayed away in a lot of ways. But, part of this discussion that we're having is to say, hey, there's a lot of good things about collecting star cards. And if you know what you're looking for, you can really be rewarded with some nice cards in a collection.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
That are authentic and genuine and, have low print runs and all that stuff that we all hope we like to have as collectors, at least as novelty, right?
Well, let's discuss that print run a little bit, because it's fascinating to me. Because if you look at a product such as 87 Fleer basketball, right, we see a very, very, pretty much a print run that's cut in half from 86 Fleer basketball, because nobody cared about 86 Fleer basketball when it came out.
Yeah, you couldn't give the 86 Fleer basketball away back in the day.
Yeah, you couldn't give it away. And so 87 Fleer, they cut production runs in half. We estimates, without knowing exactly, maybe 125,000 of each 87 Fleer basketball card in the set.
Yep.
125,000. So how many of each star card were produced in the?
So it does vary a little bit. It does vary a little bit by set and by year. However, in general, I'm going to use a kind of a broader range, that it's most of the star sets. The cards were produced between a print run of 3,000 and 7,000, with the average probably being, the 3,000 to 5,000 range. 3,000 maybe on the low side. There are some exceptions to that too. There's a really rare set, of all things, the 1983 Dallas Mavericks team bag set. That was, I think it's the one that was issued in the arenas, in the NBA arenas, and we should talk about how they're distributed as well. But it's rumored that those sets are short, like super short prints, what we would call today like super short print cards. And those team sets were under 1,000 in production. So now there was no major like Hall of Fame players on the Mavericks then, but you did have the rookie cards in that team bag set of like Dale Ellis and Rolando Blackman and Mark Guire. So those were perennial all-stars, right, back in the day, and still a pretty significant set. So so in general, I would say on the lower end, some of the more rare sets are maybe in the 3,000 range, and the more common higher print run sets are maybe closer to 7,000. But again, there was even an exception on the higher end side. They made a 1984 Celtics set just for Larry Bird, where it's a subset of just Larry Bird cards. And it's rumored to be that might be as high as 10,000. But even if it is as high as 10,000 for a couple of those sets, that still, by today's standards, is remarkably low, right? So it's off the charts low. And, I think that's what makes them more collectible, is the fact that it's the fascinating story of the way they were distributed. The original authentic bags, these original, Polybags were sold really in two places. You could get them through authorized dealers, like basically your local card shop, right? So they'd go to card stores, hobby shops, and then they were sold in NBA arenas, but for just a few of the teams. So you had to be fortunate enough to be going to see an NBA game in the mid 1980s and and it wasn't every single NBA team. It was just a few of the teams. So they had arena sets for like the Milwaukee Bucks, the Lakers, the Sixers, the Mavericks, and the Celtics. So there, if you're going to the NBA games at the time, you could buy the bag sets in the arena. So think about that. That's pretty limited distribution. You're not just going to your local Walmart or convenience store to buy a wax pack of these like you would.
That's very interesting. And I do think it's also interesting that Fleer took a long time to make cards of some players. John Stockton's rookie card for Fleer is 1988, right? His first star card is 1984.
84. So literally the Star company Stockton rookie from 1984, 85. When I say 84, it's 84, 85, but you'll see like the 85, typically you'll see like the 85 label on the actual Stockton card. I have the second year card. So like this is his second year card. That's not even his rookie. But again, This second year card is from the 85, 86 set. This is 1 year before the 86 Fleer set. And then Fleer they missed the boat on Stockton because they didn't make his rookie card till 88, right? So that's how long Stockton had been in the league. And there's a lot of cases, there's a lot of examples like that.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's one of the coolest things. One other thing I did want to talk to you about was the photography on these sets and how influential it was. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I have a few examples of some cards that I think just have some great photography that were unique to Star, because what happened was Star used their own photographers that were allowed to go basically into 3 arenas that I know. And so every Star card you see, there are exceptions to in 86, they make different Star cards, and some of the subsets from like All-Star games and the Slam Dunk contest, they brought photographers to those games and they have those as well. But with a regular NBA game during the seasons, the photography was taken at the LA Clippers home game on the West Coast, or the Lakers in LA. And on the East Coast, it was really only the New Jersey Nets. So at the time, the Nets were in New Jersey. So they had their arena in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. And that's where a lot of the East Coast photos were taken. So if I'm showing, like I'll show this Daryl Dawkins card, but on that card, you're seeing that's a home game for the Nets. And in that card, you see not only Dawkins, but you see Larry Bird there defending him. You see Dennis Johnson under the hoop. And then in the background, you see Robert Parrish. So you got a lot of Hall of Famers on that one card, and it's a pretty unique photography. And then even so, like in this card, here's a Ralph Sampson, another Ralph Sampson card. It's got Jamal Wilkes. It's got, and it's also got, James Worthy. So, I don't know if you can see, it's hard. When I get up close, I don't know, it might get a little blurry. But.
Sure.
So that's what I think. Personally, I like the aesthetics of the Star Company cards. I think aesthetically, they look great. I think a lot of the photography is really unique. When you look at like the images on and I'm going to show you one of the oversized cards. This is one of the 5x7s I'm talking about, right?
That's awesome.
This is Jordan in the Slam Dunk contest in 85. So, great photography. I mean, there's a lot of classic photos from that Slam Dunk contest. That's a pretty famous Slam Dunk contest, which ultimately Dominique Wilkins won. But that card I just showed you came out of the subset of the Slam Dunk subset 5x7, which again, those participants, the contestants from that Slam Dunk contest, were all in that one Polybag as a subset. So Star did a lot of variety of subsets in Polybags, back then, which was great.
Okay, so if we're trying to, kind of assess if someone is thinking about getting started with Star unopened, right?
Yeah.
Again, they're all distributed in Polybags. There's no rack packs or wax packs or anything like that. What are some things to look for if they're trying to determine, given the sordid history that we're dealing with here? What are some things to look for the detection of fakes?
Okay. Now, do you mean raw? Do you mean raw, ungraded, or unauthenticated bags that we just purchase, or are you talking about like in a GAI holder?
Well, even I mean, there are some that have been pointed out in some of the collectors forums that are GAI that are not authentic. So what are some things to look for? Yeah,
the very first thing I would do. I would say if I were to give any advice about starting to get into that, because that can be that can sink you pretty quick too, funding wise, depending on what you want to collect and who maybe is in that Polybag set that you're looking to collect. But I would say start out by buying something really cheap, like an obscure team bag set. You can get them for $20. Just get a even like this set that I just showed you. This was not expensive. This Polybag set and others like it from the 83 or 84, 85 Star sets, you can get those on eBay. But more importantly, if you have the means, if you can get to like a local or a regional or a national card show, I would spend time going to like a larger card show where you possibly going to have some dealers that have Star cards in the bags, and literally pick them up and hold them so that you get a feel for what they are. Get a feel for, the plastic, how translucent it is, because it's kind of like a cloudy, thick plastic, and you have to you almost have to get it in your hand first, because pictures on eBay or scans online that you're looking at, you're not necessarily going to know till you have it in hand. It's just like anything else, right? You got to kind of touch and feel these polybags to see. But the other thing to look for is, I would say in general, the ones that are not the most expensive ones are less likely to be counterfeited anyway. I mean, very few people are going to take the time to counterfeit a bag like this. That's why I think if you're getting something like this in your hands, first, to be able to examine the cards, it's really important, because like I'm going to show this card here. This is like a James Worthy rookie from that short print set from the Lakers from '83. Here's a couple things to look out for. The borders, there's 2 or 3 giveaways that make it authentic. One is the thin borders on the side, on the left and the right. Okay, they're very unnaturally thin borders compared to the typical, Topps or Fleer card, whatever, name your manufacturer from back in the day, where you had nice even borders around all 4 sides. Star is not like that. Star has thick borders on the top or a thin border on the bottom, and it's got thin borders on the sides. So it looks unnatural. It looks like it's miscut, even though it's not. So if I show, I don't know if you could tell, like from this Kareem, this Kareem has, near perfect centering. And I can't hold it much closer, else it's going to get blurry, but like the top border is unusually thick, wide, and the bottom border is a little bit thin, but yet it's given a grade of perfect centering, because that's the way Star did that's the way they did their centering. So if you know that going in, then you know what to look for, because it's never going to be uniform, perfect centering on all 4 sides.
That's very interesting. Okay, so
in fact, if you find cards like that, they're considered off center, really, in a lot of ways.
That's fascinating. And so there are some clues also in regards to the fakes that were put out on this shopping network. On the borders were a different color. Is that correct?
Yeah, the borders were a different color, and they were thicker. So they looked more like the modern cards of the early '90s at the time. So it's like they tried too hard to retrofit those cards and make them into the early '90s, mid-'90s design of cards. That's my impression anyway. I feel like that they were, trying to fit in with the times, rather than keep them in their raw state, original state from the early to mid '80s, off the printing press. So now I will say this: I want to, when you get later into the Star years from '86, in the '85, '86, right before the licensing got turned over to Fleer, some of those cards are a little thicker. So if you're buying cards out of like the, I'll show this one. You can't, again, you're not gonna be able to see on camera as much, but the borders on this card from '86, this is called the Best of the New subset. This had a print run of about 3,000 per card. And these are just a little bit thicker from side to side. But again, those are the little subtle differences that, until you kind of study these cards and see them, you will understand that as you get more into them. But what I did was, I just wanted to buy a lot of Beckett graded examples first, so I knew what I was looking at, so I knew what I was dealing with, so that I can sort of become my own self-evaluator, or I'll say self-grader of these cards to try to authenticate them. I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but there's 2 parts to this too. There's another, on some of the borders of the cards that have white borders on the back, like this Jordan card, on the edges of, what was great about Star is they used a lot of borders, like different colors. You had this rainbow of colors, which was great back then. A lot of them matched the team colors. So like on this Dominique Wilkins, this is Dominique's second-year card, Star. I say second-year card. This is from 1984, 85. So that still predates the Fleer rookie by 2 years. But you'll notice that, it's what's wonderful about them is a lot of the cards have the color borders that match the actual team colors. So, but often I will not be able to show this on camera, but oftentimes you can see the color from the printing they did back in the day. It'll bleed over a little bit into the back along the top edges. So when you have those polybags or you have those cards in hand, you can see sometimes on the, especially the darker colors, green, blue, purple, red, you can see the colors bleed over onto the edges of the cards on the back. And that's a telltale sign that that's authentic.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Because yeah, it seems like it's such a challenging thing to authenticate potentially. You have to, compared to other items, you really have to know your stuff here because
you do. But I also try to keep it in perspective. And I know there's a lot of Jordan collectors out there. I'm one of them. But if you're buying any other cards not named Michael Jordan, you're less likely to run into counterfeits just because, the nature of counterfeits, obviously, I'm stating the obvious, is it follows the money. So if there's cards that command 4 or 5 figures or more, those are the ones that are more likely to be counterfeited. But some of the, you can buy beautiful examples of rookie cards of other great Hall of Famers like, Barkley and Stockton and, Worthy. We talked about some of these players, Dominique Wilkins, Isaiah Thomas, Clyde Drexler. Those are not hard to find. Well, they're becoming harder to find, I'll say that, because more and more people are sending them in for grading. But you can still find some raw examples. You just have to know what to look for. Ideally, I'd rather do it in person, but I know that's not practical for most people. And I do a lot of buying online, like a lot of people as well. And sometimes I'll take the chance and buy some stuff online occasionally. But just proceed with caution. It can be done. You just have to do your research ahead of time.
Okay, great. Well, you've already inspired me to, I think I'm going to check eBay after this and try to find a star polybag, maybe in a GI holder. So I may be consulting you.
Sure.
But thank you so much for coming on today and discussing this. I feel like we could do like five hours just on.
Yeah, we could. I took a lot of notes because I wanted to make sure we covered a lot of key topics. But I did want to also leave you with one other thing about the Jordan rookie, the famous Jordan 101 rookie. I've compared that one to, think about the difference between the 86 Fleer Jordan. Think about that card being like the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle card. Think about the 84 Star Extended Rookie 101 card being the 51 Bowman Mantle. And there's a difference in the iconic nature of the 52 Topps versus the 51 Bowman. Now, true collectors know that the 51 Bowman is his real rookie, but that's not the one that gets all, that's not the one that gets all the credit. The one that is famous is the 52 Topps for certain reasons, right? And it's, I think, the same with 86 Fleer. It's just that iconic pose, of him, dunking. And unfortunately for Star, they chose an image of Jordan rebounding, right, against the New Jersey Nets under the basket with that famous Star 101 card, which I wish I had. I don't have one to show you, but most collectors, I think, today are, if you look at auction prices, realize you've seen that card pop up occasionally. But the key is the print runs. Now, if you look at graded examples of that card, that Star 101 card, there's less than 900 graded, or there was the last time I checked. It might be maybe hovering around 900 graded examples in the population report from BGS, from Beckett Grading, versus 30,000 examples of the Jordan rookie. Now that's all grading companies. So that's when you combine, or at least the 3 big grading companies, Beckett, PSA, SGC, for the 86 Fleer Jordan. So think about more than 30 times difference in the scarcity of that Star 101 card compared to the 86 Fleer Jordan. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think it's the comparison between the 51 Bowman Mantle and the 52 Topps Mantle is very poignant here, because it's, one of those two gets all the love, and it has to do with the image being iconic, and it's, the Fleer's first basketball release versus Topps's, first full issue release.
Right.
I think that's a
exactly
really good comparison.
I think that's true. That's exactly right. So, anyway, I've enjoyed learning, because I'm learning, in real time too. I uncover something new all the time about Star. In no way am I considered an expert. I appreciate you bringing me on. Certainly, thank you for having me again. But I encourage anybody out there to just do your own research. Again, be smart, use common sense. It's not it's not meant to be a minefield. That I think there's way more positives than negatives with collecting star cards. And happy to come on again and talk about it another time, or whatever works. And I'll try to do maybe another video or two on my channel as well, just because it happened to be a pretty popular video on my channel.
Sure.
I think it's gotten the most views of
That-
any of the videos I've done.
That's awesome.
Career.
Yeah, and if any of you have not subscribed to Chris's channel, All Time Sports Cards, it's a fantastic channel. He does show a lot of unopened, but he's also very, very educational. Every time I watch his videos, I learn something. So check it out if you haven't, and give him a subscription if you enjoy his content. So thank you again. It's been a lot of fun discussing this, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, take care.